Hey guys, how's it going? I wanted to share a story with you guys today, and I had briefly kind of touched on this on a radio show I did last week. The topics that I covered were the process church, Discordianism, chaos magic, the Church of the Subgenius, kind of based off of the last video I released about chaos magic and the Discordian origins of the alt-right. And when I was looking through this, I obviously found the connections between the Process Church and Scientology. And I also found a connection between Synanon, which I have personal experience with, not in the direct form of Synanon, but an offshoot of Synanon, and I'll get to that later. But they are directly related to Scientology and the government, with agencies such as the Department for a Drug-Free America, as well as the National Institute of Health. And the federal government gave just, I guess, this guy with no connections to intelligence or anything like that, they gave him $1 million grant back in 1970, so that's a lot of money, to start this self-help, self-improvement program called Synanon. And basically it turned into an MK Ultra brainwashing center, and many of these have popped up all over the country since then. You know, I hear a lot of people saying that, oh, if we don't win, you know, there's going to be brainwashing centers and they will forcibly medicate us, and oh, we're going to get sent to the gulags. But guys, they're already here. I was in one, and the video that I will link below, done by Deplorable Princess, she was in one when she was seven. And I really encourage you to go listen to her story, because she's a survivor of these institutions, just like many of us are. So many. You have no idea how common this is. I'm sure in the comments section I'm going to hear from a lot of you guys that went through the same exact thing. So I just wanted to briefly tell my experience. It's a very long story, but I'm going to try and condense it. So the kind of program that I was sent to, it was under the umbrella of the Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs, which funnily enough spells out WASP. And there were a lot of WASPs in that program, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant white people. And so these kind of programs, what they are, well, I'll start with the beginning, okay? I was having behavioral issues in school ever since I was probably 12. I hated going to school. I hated sitting down and learning lies all day. All I wanted to do was work on music and go to the music room and make music. I didn't really care about anything else. And I was very rebellious. I was diagnosed with ADHD because I would like fidget a lot in class, and I would doodle and look out the window, and I wouldn't listen. So they said I was oppositional defiant as well. And I was a little shit, I'm not gonna lie. I was out of control. My parents could not control me. I was starting to experiment with drugs at 14, you know. Ooh, I'll try that pill, I'll try this, you know, whatever I could get my hands on, basically, because I was so utterly bored and so utterly depressed. It's like, what do I have to live for? Why am I here? What is my purpose? My purpose is to just be famous one day? Like, what else do I mean, I didn't really know what the point was of being alive, and I was really lost. And so when I was 14 years old, even before then at 12, they had me start seeing psychiatrists because they just didn't know what to do with me. And so the psychiatrists put me on things like Ritalin, Concerta, Adderall. They tried about every single pill in the book to try and get my behavior issues to just go away, to get me to listen, to get me to stop, you know, being so rebellious and running away and not listening to the teachers, not doing my homework. So that's what they did to try and help me. And the medication obviously made me worse. And this is the story that I hear over and over and over again. You know, children, I've worked with children because I work with people that, you know, have these kind of issues. I've worked before in my past with children that were 2 and 3 years old on medication already, on antipsychotics, you guys, 2 and 3-year-old babies. So it's gotten even worse since my time. Deplorable Princess, as I said, was 7, and she was just dropped off there by her parents. See, they scare the parents and say, you know, your child will end up dead if you don't do this. And little did I know, now I know, that these psychiatrists were getting kickbacks from these organizations for scaring the crap out of parents and saying, you either send your kid to one of these programs or they're going to die and you're going to be responsible for it. So, like any parent that is brainwashed and not aware about what the intention is behind these places, they send you there. And my parents had me escorted there. That's what they called it. Two strangers woke me up in the middle of the night. I was 14, sleeping in my bed around 2:30 a.m. They woke me up, a man and a woman, and they told me to get dressed and come with them because we were going to Utah and I was going to stay there just for a little while. So I got dressed. I was really groggy. I didn't really know what was going on, and their car was waiting for me in our garage. And my parents gave me a hug goodbye, and they cried, and they said, "We're so sorry, but we have to do this to save you. We're doing this because we love you." And I had my little bag of things that my mom packed for me, like a couple of CDs that I liked to listen to, and then they took me to the airport, and the woman watched me go to the bathroom. She would not let me out of her sight. She said that if I refused, she would put me in handcuffs. And these people are just random, like they're hired to kidnap children. And actually, I've done research into one of the most lucrative escorts, and he was a convicted pedophile and child rapist. So these people are paid to go and abduct your children, and you're paying for it because you think that's the only way to help your child. So we arrived in Las Vegas because we had about an 8-hour drive out to Laverkin, Utah, Mormon country, the middle of nowhere. And they told me, this was before Christmas. They said, you're probably going to be out by after New Year's. It's just going to be a quick stay. You're going to get to play softball. You'll get to play all the sports that you like to play. You're going to have fun. You're going to meet new friends. And I thought, okay, this is really awful, but I'll just do whatever I have to do to fake it till I make it and get the hell out of there so I can come home and see my friends and get the hell away from these strangers that have abducted me. So we get there, and that's when the reality of what this place was really started to set in, and I can't even explain the feeling. It was like this pit in my stomach where I finally realized I'm going to be here for a very long time and I cannot leave. And the gates shut behind me. They had electronic gates, and doors were all locked. Windows were locked, everything. It was a lockdown facility. And they took all my clothes away, all my possessions, all of the little trinkets that my mom had packed for me, like my stuffed animals and stuff. They took them. And I was not allowed to talk to anybody. I could not call my parents for probably 4 or 5 months until they knew that I was brainwashed enough to not tell them to please come save me. So what they do when you first get there, sorry. Okay. Sorry. I don't talk about this all the time. So, what they do when you first get there is they put you in an orange shirt. Well, before they strip search you. So you're naked in front of these people and they ask you to squat. They ask you to squat and cough, and it's humiliating. And then they give you a chemical treatment in your hair, this nasty chemical stuff that they run through your hair, and it's awful and it burns. And then after that, they put you in the orange shirt, bright orange, like a jail prison jumpsuit kind of color, and they take away your shoes. You're not allowed to wear shoes because you could run. So you have to wear little slippers. And the only possession I was allowed to have was a water bottle that I could fill up once in a while when I had permission, and it got moldy so fast. We had to use the same plastic water bottle for about a month. It was so gross. I can still taste that mold. Like, it was disgusting. And then I sat down and talked with these girls who started to tell me, I've been here for 3 years, I've been here for 2 years, I've been here for 4 years, and I started to panic. I'm like, holy shit. And knowing my parents, I wasn't getting out of there until I did A, B, and C and checked off all the boxes because they were not playing around. So, I was, okay, so the therapy, right? You have your families, and this is what they do in cults. They replace your family with a new family. So you each have a group. It was divided up A through L or something, and that was your family. And there were 6 different levels. And when you're on level 1, you can't really talk to anybody because they think that you're going to all scheme together to, try and escape. Like there was anywhere to go. We were in the middle of the desert in a bright orange shirt, and everybody knew what the center was. Like the whole town worked there. There was nothing else around. So Yeah, there was point systems, and you would have to earn a certain amount of points to advance to the next level. There were 6 levels, and you would regain a little bit of your privileges back. So, once you obtain level 5 or something, you can shave your legs, and you know, that's about it. But we were completely cut off from the world. We were not allowed to talk to anybody. My friends all thought I died. Nobody had any idea where I was. My parents, I wasn't allowed to talk to them for 5 months. All of our phone calls were monitored. All of our letters were read, so we weren't allowed to say, please come help us. They forcibly medicated me there. A lot of people like to say that I'm psychotic, and that's why I was in this center, and that's why I needed medication. I didn't have a choice. They would make you take the pill, and you'd have to show them, in your mouth that there was no more pill in there, and they would really check. So you had no choice. And if you refused, you would get thrown into solitary confinement, and you would be left in there to piss and shit all over yourself in a cell. So I just took the pills and did what I had to do to get by. But I was so heavily medicated at one point that I was just drooling. I wasn't even conscious. I was way over medicated. And the thing that was crazy is if you wanted to get off the medication, the doctor only came once a month. And you didn't even know if he would let you get off the medication. So, they put me on everything imaginable. I don't even know how I'm still functioning. I have not been on psychotropics since I was in that program. And I will never go on them again. They are poison. And they are the things that actually cause the chemical imbalance. There's no scientific proof that says that there is a chemical imbalance that needs to be fixed with psychotropic drugs. That's completely bogus. And so while we were there, we were engaged. They had us do this thing called attack therapy or confrontation therapy, which was not therapeutic at all. It was a brainwashing technique that they did, that they actually got from Synanon, which got it from North Korean prisons, where they would brainwash people into communist doctrines, and that's what they would do to us. They would have everybody in the group gang up on you and yell at you and try and get you in trouble. And, say you were raped, they would blame it on you. They would say that it's because you're a whore, because you dressed like that, you deserved it. And they would yell at us. I would walk into group therapy, and my therapist would, for no reason, just walk up to me, start screaming in my face and say, get the hell in there. And then he'd take away all my levels, all the hard work that I worked for, months and months and months of working and working and working, and he would just say, get into worksheets. And that worksheets was the place where you went in there and you weren't allowed to talk to anybody. You had all of your speech taken away. You could not talk at all. And they would just make us listen to books on tape all day and fill in little bubbles on an answer sheet, and that was it. You weren't allowed to talk to anybody. Everybody had to act like you didn't exist, so it was kind of like solitary confinement. And he just threw me in there whenever he wanted to challenge me. Yeah, and he was an Amerindian man, so I was basically mentally tormented by an Amerindian man who was so fucking ugly. I can see his face now, and I really wish I could see him face to face and give him a piece of my mind for all the mental torment he put all of us young white girls through. And so I was there for 20 months. It was awful. Towards the end, I had such bad Stockholm syndrome that I didn't even want to leave. I was purposely keeping myself there longer because I was terrified of going outside of those gates. I didn't even know how to handle talking to people. So I finally got out. I worked through all the levels, and I was severely brainwashed for about a year after as well, because if you do anything wrong, they send you back. And I was not 18 yet, so I knew that I have to do whatever I have to do to get by until I'm 18, and then I'll say, F you, everybody. So it was definitely a terrible experience, but this is still going on to this day, and that's what I'm afraid happened to Grace Steele, or that's what I'm afraid happened to Grace Crusader Girl, because she's still young and she has no rights. These kids have no rights. They have absolutely no rights. If their parents want to get them kidnapped and sent away, they'll do it. And I want to make this clear that I don't hold this against my parents, because they were completely manipulated and conned into this as well. We had these things called seminars that you had to go through, and this was where the major brainwashing happened. It was about 3 to 4 days of intensive brainwashing. I don't know any other way to put it. We were sleep deprived. We would only get about 4 hours of sleep a night. and then we'd be locked in this dark room with no windows all day doing these really emotionally like draining exercises where we would have to sit down in groups and talk about like really awful things that happened to us. And if you didn't cry, then you would get kicked out of the seminar and you'd have to wait like 4 months until the next one. And that means you're there that much longer. So I was just making shit up because my stories were not that traumatic. Like I was 14, I had a pretty good life. I was never raped. You know, I had some like bad things happen, but I didn't have this like traumatic past like some of these people did. So I just made shit up so I could get through. And you know, that's really disturbing that people have to do that to make it through these programs. You actually are creating a false narrative that you're like some fucked up person when you're really not. But you had to. You had to in order to advance to the next level and get the hell out of there. So yes, the parents had to go through these seminars as well. They brainwashed the parents. The parents went through the same seminars and they would tell the parents, if you don't go through this alongside your child, then your child's gonna die. Like you're not working the program. That's what they would call it. So my parents were brainwashed. They, you know, they didn't have to experience all the torture that I did every day, but you know, they had to go to these seminars. They were brainwashed. They were exposed to all of this bullshit too, and it was just so traumatic for my whole family. But we are so strong now, and I've got to say that it was the birth of my son that healed my family, and that's a beautiful thing. So I just want to let anybody know that's out there struggling with these memories of these places and you don't know where to turn or you just want to tell your story. Well, I think we all should start telling our stories and we should organize these into a documentary and you know, tell the world about these brainwashing facilities that exist today. They're not coming, they're here, and we've survived through them. So those of you that are watching this and you know that you were brainwashed and, you know, it didn't work, congratulations, because we're the ones that they couldn't break, and now they have hell to pay.